Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
I would like you all to give a warm welcome to our main speaker, Al.
Hi, my name's Al. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Al.
Thank you for that warm welcome. I want to thank Faith for asking me to talk at the meeting. It's a good thing you called, because I would have been here tomorrow night at 7:30, because I wrote the date wrong at the calendar, and there was a few people that asked me when I was talking next. I said, I'll be talking next Saturday night at Westchester here. And so that's how it goes, you know what I mean? I really enjoyed your sharing. I was really enjoyed it. Particularly when you talk about fear in the 11th step. I mean, that'll kind of like, the 11th step really kind of, it gets us in touch with what's fear about, you know. I'll get into that a little later. I don't think of anything I've ever done in my life that I've liked as much as drinking, you know what I mean? I mean, I like getting shit-faced. And my favorite was Thunderbird wine. Thunderbird wine. They used to call me Boy and his Bird, you know. It was like this. That's the Thunderbird. And then it got too much, and you know, in Hawaii it cost $1 a jug in Honolulu. When I was drinking that was for a fifth, and that's too much money, you know. So, but they were selling Triple Jack wine, which was the same thing, you know what I mean? It was 20% by volume, and so I bought Triple Jack wine, you know, and you know, I'd have drank donkey piss if it was 20% by volume, you know what I mean? I don't understand how these guys would go into a liquor store and buy that Muscatel, you know what I mean? And even a drinker like Chuck Chamberlain, this guy really liked the sauce, but he used to call it Muscadoodle. And that stuff's only 12%, you know what I mean? Come on, you know. I never looked at, all I looked at was percentage by volume. That's what I was interested in. I started drinking when I was 17 years old, and I just started drinking on weekends, and it just did it for me. In other words, I'll get into it a little later, it did it for me. And it started out on weekends, and pretty soon it got every day, and then pretty soon I got busted with a fake ID at Happy's Liquor Store in Arcadia, because you used to be able to go down to Main Street in Los Angeles, you know, and get a fake ID for $5, you know. They have your picture on it and everything, you know what I mean? And I got caught with it, and they gave me a choice to either go into service or go to jail. So I went in the Air Force for 4 years, and they kept me to the very day. I went in an Airman Basic, and I came out an Airman Basic. You know what I mean? I was, they wouldn't, you know, and I was a certified aircraft mechanic. You know, I had already graduated for California Aeronautical Engineering. I already had I had already graduated where I had an A&E license. That's At that time, I think they call it A&P now, but at that time it was aircraft and engine, and it was only reciprocating engine. They didn't have jets, hadn't come in yet. That's how long ago that was. And don't laugh, Alex. Jesus, come on, give me a break. I'm trying to be nice. And after 2 years, they wouldn't let me near an airplane. You know, they wouldn't let me near an airplane. They made me a day room orderly. No, all I had to do was dust off the television set and sweep the day room, you know, and I couldn't do it. It was just too hard. They had a base alert one time, you know, and the base alert was on a Saturday, and I showed up for it on a Sunday, you know, and I remember telling our commanding officer, well, sir, it was only a mistake. I thought it was today, not yesterday. Well, that just didn't fly. You know what I mean? So I was sentenced to the base for 60 days, and so I had guys bringing me booze and girls bringing me pizzas and booze, and we'd sit in the parking lot drinking, and you know, just. Then when I got out of the service, he told me, you know, I remember this guy Major, before he released me, he says, you know, Al. He says, I don't know how you're going to make it out there in the streets. He says, I don't know how you're going to make it. And I said, don't worry about it. I mean, I'm just going to be just fine. He says, well, you couldn't even make it in the Air Force as a day room orderly. How are you going to make it out there? Well, I didn't worry about it because, you know, I was cool, hip, and slick. I didn't need anybody. I mean, I'd go to the 101, I'd say, buy those people around and tell them it's on Big Al, you know. And I didn't need anybody to take care of me because I was just the man. And the reason I was able to be the man, and I was 26 years old, the reason I was able to be the man is because I was living with my mommy and daddy. And they were, it's easy to be the man when you're living with mommy and daddy, isn't it? So my dad got tired of my shit. Me coming home smashed, waking my mom up, telling her to cook breakfast for some girl I picked up at a honky-tonk, you know, and one time we got in a fight in the front yard. Some guy brought this guy's girlfriend home, and he followed us, and him and his buddies, and they come up to the front yard, we're screaming and yelling, so I go get my little brother out, and he goes out in the pajamas, and we're fighting these guys in the front yard, and my mom's out there in between, says, boys, you're not fighting, are you? And I was like, the following week, my dad kicked me out of the house, you know, and he kicked me out of the house. You know, and I couldn't make it in the streets. Couldn't make it. Just couldn't make it. I knew I had to do something. I remember I read my mom's book. She had these books in the bathroom, you know, that True Romance and all those books. And I figured, that's the answer. What I need to do is get married. Because they talk about all these guys running into some girl. The guy's living a real wild life. And he runs into some girl. And she gets a hold of him. She shapes him up. Pretty soon he's got that house and that car, and that job, and the picket fence, and the 2 kids. And he's a member of the Balboa Bay Yacht Club. You know, I figured, geez, that's for me. You know what I mean? I'm going to get married. So I married after about a year being married. I remember standing there, my wife standing there holding my son David in her arms, and she said, make a choice between me and this Thunderbird you're doing around. And I could see that she was holding me back from doing the things I could do with my life. You know what I mean? Isn't it amazing when you're drinking how these people hold you back to your true potential? You know what I mean? Well, my true potential really came out because I was going to go take Spanish and typing. is I need to take Spanish because I'm half Mexican, you know what I mean? And I should know how to speak Spanish, you know, but I didn't know how to speak Spanish, you know. And 2 weeks, you know, about 2 weeks later after I left my wife because she was stopping me from flowering into my true being, I lost my job. And the reason I lost my job is I didn't have anybody to get me up in the morning to go to work, you know. Nobody to make my lunch, and nobody to drive me to the bus stop. Big Al, right? But I remember where this buddy of mine kept his checkbooks, you know what I mean? And you know, and he's really one of my best friends, you know. And I knew he wouldn't mind it if I took him because his account was closed. So I reopened his account for him, and 18 felony counts later, I jumped on an airplane, and that's when I flew to Hawaii, you know. And see what it takes to make this program. If you don't die, most people, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, but it's a fact, most people die before they get sober. You know, and it's nothing new. They've been dying for a long time, and their ass is going to keep on dying. You know, that's just the nature of the disease of alcoholism. You know what I mean? People die of a lot of things. You know, they die of alcoholism. You know, so what happens is that I had to reach a point called pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization. So that's what we all have to reach. Because for us to have to take, you know, for us to begin to take the steps where we have to look at the way we think. You know what I mean? I'm not even talking about living our life. I'm talking about to investigate our thinking. To investigate our thinking and be willing to be open to exchange ideas and belief systems that we have for other ideas and belief systems. Before we're willing to do that, we have to take these belief systems as far as they can go, see? And some people take them all, you know, they take them all the way to the grave, you know? And, you know, to me, you know, I believe in reincarnation, you know, so you get to come back and work it all out again, you know what I mean? Wouldn't that be a bitch to have to come back and go to AA meetings again in your next life, you know what I mean? Some people want to go to the big meeting in the sky, you know what I mean? When I die, I'm going to have a drink, you know? They're going to have 101 up there, you know what I mean? And the jukebox is going to be free. And all the cocktail waitresses are going to love me. You know what I mean? That's what's going to be like. That's heaven. But in the meantime here, I got to do something. And, you know, you figure that out because here I took that money and I checked into the Alexander Young Hotel in downtown Hotel Street, you know, they call it Shit Street, Hotel Street, down there, the Alexander Young Hotel. I checked in there and I lived there a week and I didn't pay no rent. I ran up and down Hotel Street like a crazy man, you know, going in and out of the Swing Club, Johnny Leaders, the Black Cat, Chinatown Grill, you know, and it's just strange, you know, you can't remember anybody's name, but I can remember the old bars I drank at, you know what I mean? And the air hose and all the hooky lao, I mean, all those running around there like every night. And I drank all my money up in 1 week. I lay in the bathtub and I had a bottle of Kamchatka, and I bought the cheapest vodka they had, the Kamchatka vodka, you know. And I bought it at, don't shake your head, you drank it too, don't tell me you didn't. And I laid in the bathtub and I'd drink that Kamchatka vodka, you know, I'd lay there during the day and I'd slide the TV where I could look in the mirror and watch the TV and, yeah. And that's how I did it and then pretty soon I had to leave because I didn't have any more, I didn't have any money. and they wanted me to pay rent at the Alexander Young Hotel. And so I couldn't do that. So what I did is I got dressed up and I put on an extra pair of shoes in a paper bag, and I put my toothbrush and toothpaste in a paper bag, and I wrote my name on there like it was a lunch, like it was a lunch. So they would think I was going to lunch, like they're watching me, right? And I'm so important, I walk out of the lobby into the street, and I left my clothes in the hotel, and I went and got I went and caught a bus out to Aiea, where Aiea is? It's out by, Pearl City Tavern. The Monkey Bar is out that way? Okay. Well, they were down in there, that's, where Pearl Harbor is? Okay, right. There's a swamp. Right down in Pearl Harbor, there's a swamp, and they had Quonset huts down there. And the name of the place was Samoan Village. Who named it Samoan Village was the police. And the reason they named it Samoan Village wasn't because it was a tropical paradise, it's because Samoans lived there. You know what I mean? And so I moved down there for $36 a month. Now, a $36 a month room, let me tell you, is not the Ritz-Carlton. It's the closet. What the closet is a pipe from one side of the room to the other side. And then what our beds is like one bedroom. One of the rooms would have a mattress, and the other room would have a box spring. You know what I mean? Well, I didn't have a mattress. I had a box spring, and I still got a scar in my leg where the wire went through the box spring and cut my leg, but I couldn't say anything to my landlady because she kicked me out. Where would I go? And every Sunday morning, they had like a community kitchen, and every Saturday morning, they'd be playing those. Did anybody see that Crouching Tiger and Sleeping Lion or something like that? Is that what it is? That samurai movie? Well, they had samurai movies every Saturday morning, And we had this guy in there. His name was Greg Yamaguchi, He was a frustrated samurai warrior. He had a broom handle, and he'd be sitting. Imagine you're coming off a Saturday night drunk. You just got finished throwing up. You know what I mean? And you went back and you brushed your teeth with salt because you don't have toothpaste, right? And then when you brush your teeth again, you threw up again because you stuck something in your mouth. So what you do is you take a hit of Triple Jack wine, and you're going back to sit down. Your whole body is itching. Your flesh is standing still, and you're spinning around inside, And here comes Greg Yamaguchi across the room with the broom. Yeah! Oh, forget about it. Like you freak out. Didn't we have a good time drinking, And so I stayed there for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, and I couldn't go to work. Pretty soon it got so bad I couldn't work. I worked as a bouncer and a bartender, and I got so bad I couldn't do that. And I couldn't pay my rent, so I subleased part of my room to another guy, and I forgot to see if the guy had a job. He didn't have a job, so the two of us couldn't pay the rent, and my landlady kicked us out, and my landlady was like I don't know if you ever, just imagine somebody about 5 feet 11 tall, weighing about 280 pounds, with a muumuu on, with Levi's underneath it, with a Jungle Jim helmet and a bandana tied around the top of it to keep the lizards out of her ears because she was a member of the shark family. You know what I mean? Her name was Mrs. Evans. She was fierce. She didn't have a toilet, and they used to go in the bucket, and every 3 days they'd dump it in a nursery. One time she got so pissed off at me, she dumped the bucket on me, And I don't know if anybody here, Bill McLaren? When I was in Hawaii, we were at the convention together there, and I took Bill over, and you can check with Bill. I took him over and introduced him to her. He couldn't believe her. So he got to see Samoan Village before they tore it down. So what happens is I ended up moving out of Samoan Village into Filipino Village, and the reason they call it Filipino Village is because a lot of Filipinos lived there, and they had a burnt out car in the back there, and so Pete and I rolled the car back up and moved into the car, you know. And we lived there for about 3 days, and I couldn't handle it, you know what I mean? So the last job I had was a practicing social drinker, was babysitting for 2 bottles of wine a day and a pack of Cools, you know. And when President Kennedy got assassinated, I was babysitting the day President Kennedy got assassinated, and it just did something. It just popped something inside my head. I got a letter saying my son was adopted away from me, and so I was just reaching that point. And I called up the Greater Council on Alcoholism, and the guy told me to come up and see him. So I went up and saw him, and he said asked me what religion I was. And I told him, well, I was baptized a Catholic. He says, well, come back tonight, and I'll take you to see a priest. And incidentally, the guy who drove me to the Aloha Tower where the alcoholism council was in Aloha Tower. And this buddy of mine drove me from Samoan Village to there. That was Greg Yamaguchi, my samurai buddy. And what happens is I came back that night. He took me to see a priest. And the priest was over on the Waikiki side. Not on the Waikiki side. He was like in Diamond Bar, rather out by Diamond Head in one of those really nice churches. And I went up there and I walked in, and the guy had on a pair of Levi's, no shoes, and a lower shirt, you know, and that little thing they hang around their neck, you know. And then he read me the 10 Commandments. I had violated all the 10 Commandments, you know, including murder. And I'm not going to tell you what that was about, you know. I mean, yes, I will, because they have in the Bible. I remember hearing over some radio station one time. They were talking about it's better to cast your seed in the womb of the whore than upon the ground. You know what I mean? And I cast it on the ground a lot of times when I was drinking, you know. And so I thought, I was, you know, I really believed I was a murderer, you know, and it's because I believed that, you know. You know, just like I believed that God punished me. I mean, I believed that. I totally believed that. I didn't realize that I did a good enough job on myself, you know. I didn't need any help, you know. And so what happens is he checked me into Salvation Army. I mean, you don't have to go there to get sober. I mean, you guys don't have to go that far if you don't want to. But if you want to, it's okay with me. It's okay. And so and what happens is the first 2 meetings, I went to at Salvation Army, the guy who slept next to me led the meeting, you know. I mean, the guy slept next to me. The guy was ancient. He was 50 years old. He loaded ice boxes and stoves in the back of trucks, you know. They had the worst case of gas of anybody I'd ever run into, you know, because, I mean, if you ever lived around people and they've been like that, you know what I mean? And when he read chapter 5, and he said, if you decide you want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it, I didn't want what he had, you know what I mean? Did not want what he had. The following week, the guy's name was Dan McVeigh, he led the meeting, and the same thing. If you decide you want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it, I didn't want what he had, you know. But the third week, this guy, we heard that a bunch of people from town like you guys are going to come put a meeting on for us. And I figured, I'm going to go out and sit in front of the mess hall and see what alcoholics look like, right? And I'm sitting out there, and this almost new car pulls up. And sitting on the right-hand side of this car is this blonde that is so hot you cannot believe it. I mean, we could have a moment of silence just for her alone, you know. And this guy slides out, and she slides over behind the wheel, and he hangs his head in there and he gives her a kiss. And he says something like, "Pick me up in about an hour and a half, honey." And she takes off with his almost new car. And this guy turns around, he comes into the meeting, he's got a real nice, sharp, checkered jacket, you know, continental, this is Peter Gunn time, continental pants, you know. You know, that's with the real tight legs, you know, like they're, you know, white shirt and a slim Jim tie and a button-down collar, looking good, hair combed, shoes shined, looking good. And when he said, "If you decide you want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it," I wanted what he had. I wanted that girl, that car, and that sport coat. And I went up to him and I gave him my sad little story, you know, that, you know, I've lived here, I haven't worked in the last 3 years, I left my family in shame. My son was adopted away from me, I deserted my wife, and I'm wanted for 18 felony counts. And I thought perhaps this guy would feel sorry for me, and all he did was look at me and tap me on the chest like this. He says, "Look," he says, "you take care of your #1 problem, and everything else will take care of itself." Well, I said, "Well, what's my #1 problem?" He says, "Your #1 problem is to go to meeting every night for the first 90 days. See, well, I said, "Do I have to go every night?" He said, "Well, how often did you drink?" I said, "I'll go every night," you know. And so, and that's what I did. See, now I've been sober now for 37 years. See, day at a time. Just, I still haven't quit drinking. I just don't drink between now and when I go to bed tonight. That's it. I learned how to live on the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it goes beyond learning how to live. I learned how to think. See? You'll hear people say Alcoholics Anonymous is a brainwashing program. Well, if anything needs to get washed, it's a newcomer's brain. You know what I mean? Really. Because life is basically, I mean, life is like a game. And if you're going to play the game of life, it's important you know the rules. Okay. And it's like 1 and 1 and 1 is 3. The answer to that is 3. And do you know why it's 3? It's because that's the way it adds up. That's not too heavy, is it? Okay. Now, if you take the way I looked at God and I saw God, you take the way I looked at myself and judged myself, and you take the way I looked at the environment around me and the way I judged the environment and the people around me, and you draw a line there, the answer to that is called Salvation Army. See? And why is the Salvation Army? It's because that's the way it adds up. You understand that? You're sitting in your chair feeling the way you feel tonight because that's the way it adds up. There's no victims. See? There's only volunteers. I could not believe how endarkened I was when I came on this program of Alcoholics Anonymous. We are really out of touch. It was really funny because Mike was talking about when he came on the program that he was hearing voices all the time, you know, and we figured, Jesus, this guy must be weird. He hears voices. Well, you know what? We all hear voices. What do you think thinking is? Unless you think you are your thinking, you can't be both. You have to decide. Am I the thinker or am I the listener? Am I the listener or am I the voices? Which am I? Right? If I'm the voices, there'd be nobody to hear anything. See, but There wouldn't. Because what so I have to decide I'm the thinker. So what that does, that creates I no longer identify with my thoughts. I mean, I can observe them, but I'm not my thinkers. I think I had a spiritual awakening when the first spiritual awakening I had is when I found out God wasn't a Catholic. You know what I mean? That was like, oh my God. How I found that out is there was Catholics who were I mean, I ran into a guy who wasn't even a Christian that was sober. And if only God could keep us sober, only Christians would be sober. Or if only God could keep us sober and God was Catholic, only Catholics would be sober. But so what happens, I had to back into my point of view if I had to back into my point of view of a power greater than myself by saying God isn't this, and God isn't that, and God isn't this, God isn't Christian, God isn't Catholic, God isn't Protestant, then all of a sudden you realize that it's all God. You know what I mean? That's all there is. The reason it's important, the reason I bring up God is because the steps don't work. Steps will not work without a belief in a power greater than yourself. If you don't want to call it God, you don't have to. It was very difficult with me because the word God carries a lot of baggage. It carries a lot of beliefs. And the book talks about that. It says our chances are nil till we get rid of our old ideas. See? Nil. What nil means is you don't have no chance at all. That means no chance. I don't like that, see. So what are my old ideas, What are my old ideas and how did they come into play? How did they play? The reason we drank, I put it together. The reason I drank, and the reason all of us drank is because we suffered. We were suffering. We were suffering emotionally. And you hear people talk about it. That I had, I never felt that I fitted in. I never felt that I fit in with the people around me. I always felt less than. And when I took a drink, I felt better, Well, just to show you, I mean, what the steps do is they ask you this, okay, you say, I don't fit in. Who told you that you didn't fit in? Oh, your thinking told you that you didn't fit in. And you believed what your thinking said. Oh, my dad told me, whatever you do, don't hang around with Mexicans. If you ever want to find a Mexican, look on a welfare line or underneath a tree, they're taking a siesta. Only one thing wrong is my dad was Mexican. See? And what happens is I formed a belief that I was less than because of that. See, when you form a belief, that when you believe that you're less than, that is suffering. You see, but we begin suffering at such a young age, and it's such a gradual buildup that we really don't recognize it. Like I could walk out on a foggy night. I live in Playa, right? I could walk out. I could walk down the end of Culver and walk over to the jetty. In the process of doing on a really foggy night, I could step out with a dry T-shirt. By the time I get to the jetty, it'd be sopping wet, see? But it would happen so gradual that I wouldn't know it. Suffering is identically the same way, because the next thing that happened to me, when I was 7 years old, I was molested by my uncle. I formed another idea that I was less than because of that. See? Then I'm going to school and I find out, now I'm not saying that religion is bad, but I was told that, I was born in sin. In other words, that before I did anything, I was wrong when I came here. And so what happens, that really fit in. Because once you get a belief system that you're unworthy, you collect a background that supports that belief system. And that causes suffering. See? So all of a sudden here I am, I'm going to parties in high school, feeling really uncomfortable, not figuring out why I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm going to high school in Monrovia, in Arcadia rather, and here's all these parties, pinko parties, and I'm walking in there, I'm looking at everybody, I think they've got their life together, and I'm looking at myself as a sinning Mexican dumb sexual pervert. Now, if you have if you look at yourself with a point of view like that, you're suffering. See? And what happens is, we're so unaware at the time that we think those things, what we do is we blame the people in the party for causing me to feel uncomfortable, when what it is what I think of me when I enter that environment that caused me feel uncomfortable, see. And here's what the blessed thing of the steps are, is that they bring us to the point to where we investigate our belief system and realizing what it is a lie. See? How you can tell something is a lie in your life is because it will cause your life not to work. It'll cause your life not to work. See? And so what happens is that's where the inventory comes. What I did, and I think we all do as alcoholics, we identify with our past and we look at our life based upon the past. See? And so what we're doing is we're contaminating the now. We're contaminating the now. See, what the inventory does, what it does is separates it from you. It separates you from this stuff. I'll give you an example. Did I pick my nose, or I'm a nose picker? You know what I mean? Did I scratch my ass, or I'm an ass scratcher? Did I knock on the podium, or I'm a podium knocker? Before I took my inventory, I would describe myself to you as Al, the nose-picking, ass-scratching podium knocker. Do you see? And I would have suffered. I would have suffered. The reason being is because I identified and defined myself based upon what I did. But as we take the steps and we realize that who we are, and I realize that who I am and what I am is an extension of God. That's who I am. Just like the rest of you guys, we're all God in drag, you know what I mean? This is it. This is who I am. This I am. You know, I remember in the Bible they asked God, "What's his name?" He says, "I am that I am." You know, and that's pretty clear. It didn't say that he's his robe. He didn't even say that he was God. You know what I mean? He said, "I am that I am." And what happens is that when we identify with our power, when I identify who I am and what I am as an extension of God, like the rest of you guys, and then what I did is I went over here and I picked my nose, I went over here and I scratched my ass, and I went over and I knocked on the podium, went over here and I drove a car. At what time did I become any of these things? I never became any of these things. These are only things I've done. And that's what my life is about, is what I've done in my life. Because who I am and what I am is an extension of God. See, and what happens is the steps create that separation where we no longer identify with our past. Because if you live your life based upon what's happened to you in your past, that's like driving your car using the rearview mirror to steer it by. You're going to run into something, you see. You know what happens now? She's on a really good step if you take the time to do it. Most alcoholics, they don't take the time to meditate because they just don't take the time. See, and what happens is that what happens is we believe that we're our thinking, and we identify with our thoughts. And as long as we identify with our thoughts, we can't be in the present. See? And why it's important, you know, like I meditate like a half hour every day. See, the reason it's important to be right here, right now is there's no other place. I mean, there's right here, here, just right here. If I could just be right here, right here, now. See, there's no, here we are. You know what I mean? And we're back again, see? And we're back again. And here we are. Here we are. You understand? There's back again, man. Here I am, back again. Here it is, right here, right now. We're here, no place, right here, no place to go. We're right here. We're already there. We're here. See? We're here. It's not happening anywhere else. Did you know that if you stop and take a look, that nothing has ever happened in the future? And nothing has ever happened in the past, and we're always worried about it. It's right here, right now. There's no other time. Here it is, right here. I'm back again. You know, here I am back again. The future is only imagination. The past is only imagination. The only thing that's real is here. No more. That's it. That's it. Do you know why people are afraid? You can inventory it, you can write it, you can do whatever you want to do about it, but the reason you're afraid is because you're thinking thoughts that scare you. You know, it's like going to see the alien, you know, and in the middle of the movie, inventory why you're feeling bad. Because you're in a scary movie. That's what it is. You don't need to inventory it. Observe it. You know, observe it. Wow, I'm really scaring myself. I'll be a son of a bitch. Get off on it. You know, wow, I'm really doing it. You know, I'm going to write about it. Now I'm going to call somebody up and talk about it, you know. So you call somebody else up that's darkened as deep, you know what I mean? And they're going to write about their fears too, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. All we really have is right here, right now. That's all we ever really have. When we go in the past, when we envision the past, or when we envision the future, what happens is we're going to have an energy leak now. You know what I mean? We're going to be tired. The reason is because we're not going to have energy for now. We're not going to have energy for now. And there's times that, you know, I'm not saying that life is a bed of roses, but life is life. I remember when I was out there drinking, I'd look at a bottle of wine, it'd be half full. You know, it'd be half, and I'd say, God, it's half gone already. You know what I mean? But after I was sober, on the program, 10 years, Evelyn, 10 years. And I'd pick up a bottle of water, and I'd take a look, it'd be half. And I'd look at it with gratitude, and I'd say, you know, this is half full. This is half full. When I was sober, I was sober around 30-some years, I figured, you know, it's just a fucking glass of water. And I decorated it, you know what I mean? And I decorated it. And life, you want to know what life is? It's life. It's not good, it's not bad. It's just what it is. I was here over 2 years ago, and it was only like 1 week out, about 5-6 weeks after I had a double bypass. It was only like a year before that I was on a fishing trip with this guy that was out there that had a heart attack and died under my arm, under my hands. And at the same time that he died, I was having chest pains. And I was out in the middle of the Pacific, 250 miles. So what I did, man, I just cramped down just between now and bedtime. I mean, that boat would rock. I'd get up and I have to walk from one side of the boat to the other. I'd have a chest pain. You know, life isn't easy. Life isn't hard. It just is what it is, see? And all I need to do is just observe it non-judgmentally. Observe my thinking non-judgmentally. You know, and observe the people around me living their life non-judgmentally. Love them and support them. Love them and support them. The people around me. And if I do that, if I put that out to the people around me, I'll experience that. And thanks again for asking me, Faith.
Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.